Hello, and welcome to episode number 16. My name is Torsten Tabel, and today I was kind of looking at freedom to choose. Like, what's interesting is that we have this. Well, we can choose. We have this thing. It's called choice. I don't know if you've heard about it. Yeah, it's kind of new, and it's like we. A lot of people realize they have choice, but they don't actually choose anything. And if you were to take away anything, or if you would be looking at if you really had choice, what would you actually choose? Like if you didn't have any stories, if you didn't have any projections and expectations and conclusions about your life, what could you actually choose? And then also, what would you choose if it was actually fun for you? Or what is actually fun for you that you'd like to choose? And so that was kind of the thing that I started looking at today. There's been tons of change going on in my life, and it's been interesting to be aware of all that change. And one of the things is that I'll be moving again at the end of the month. And it looks like we've found a place that we're going to move to. And just looking at all the different things with that whole thing of moving again, looking at what was it that I really would like to choose in a place? What are some of the things that I really enjoy, that I really like about a place? And in the search of looking at different places or different things, we're kind of open to all kinds of possibilities. And one of the things I kept on popping was a view. I really like the ocean. I like to see the ocean wherever I live. Is it a requirement? No, it's not. It's a pretty strong preference though, and I realize on how much the ocean contributes to me. So we found this place that is smaller and has all the things that work for us, and it has a view. And it's actually in a really beautiful area of the city. And so it's really looking at like, what would you choose? What if you could really choose anything, what would it be? And like truly, what would it be? If you could literally choose anything, what would you choose? And it's funny because even when you start looking at that, a lot of times even when I start looking at that, I have this story attached to what is possible or what I'm allowed to choose. And the story can be based on all kinds of things. It can be based on, oh, I can't choose that because I don't have X, Y, and Z, or, I don't have this set up, or I don't have that set up in my life, so therefore I can't choose that, which is not actually true. It's just something that we tell ourselves. It's the story that we ourselves buy. And as I start looking at that, and also what's really cool with doing this move right now is as you move, or at least as I move, I look at what I can get rid of, what I don't require anymore, and what I would like to change. And I realized in this whole process again, which only we did 6 months ago, so it wasn't that long ago. I'm looking again at like how little I actually require, and actually how much I enjoy not having stuff. I really like simplicity, and I like very little things. And so when I really look at what would I choose, that's actually one of the choices I make and have made. And I really look at whatever it is that I do choose, that it's something that I really actually like and enjoy. And again, like, there are a few things that I do like, but in general, I don't like a lot of things. And I actually, for me, less is more. And that's just me. That's just what works for me. And so as that shows up again, it's gotten really clear in my world that that's what actually works for me. And it may not work for somebody else. It may not work for you. It may not work for other people. But that's what actually works for me, which is really cool. And it's just really acknowledging what works for you and what you would actually choose. If you had freedom to choose anything, what would you actually choose? And I realized that I don't actually require that much. I wouldn't really choose. I don't actually choose that many things, material things. And so it was really interesting to become aware of that and to acknowledge that again. And that's actually true for me. And so it's really looking at, like, if you were able to choose anything, total freedom and choice, what would you actually choose? And I get that, like, somewhere I may have in the past gone, well, I'll have this and this and this, and I'll have all these things. But in reality, that doesn't actually create more for me. That's not actually truly what I would choose if I had total freedom. That would be choosing, if I did that and I chose all these different things, that would actually be choosing from a place of, well, if I could choose anything, I'd choose it. Therefore, if I had total choice, I would choose everything. And it's like, and no, I wouldn't. And so for some people, and so I get that in the past, I would have looked at it in that way. And really it is this place of, I'm choosing it because I can, because right now I can't. And if I can, I'm just going to choose everything. And that's this, from this place of not having enough, not really being in choice. And it's like, oh, if I suddenly had choice, I would have all these things, which isn't actually true for me. There are certain things that I would there are more things that I would choose for sure, but in the big sense, not that much, because I just don't actually require it. And there's, in this moment, there's not a lot of things that I would choose that I know would be a contribution to my life. And so it's really choosing from that space, like, what would you choose and what would actually be a contribution to you? And when you look at it from that place, like, okay, so if I'm going to choose things, I'm going to choose things that actually nurture me and are a contribution to my life. And from that space, what would you actually choose? And would you choose different than if you're suddenly like, oh, I have total choice, I can choose anything. Oh, I'm going to choose everything, and I have this and that and that and that and that. That might still be true for you. And it's just acknowledging what works and what actually would be a contribution to you. And so that's really what I've been starting to look at. And it's also interesting, like, if you have this desire in your life, you have this kind of a bigger picture or beyonds of where you are in this very moment. And you start looking at, okay, so in order to create the beyonds that I'm aware of, what would I actually start choosing today? How would I choose different? What other possibilities are there that I haven't actually looked at? And so it's also playing from this space too. And looking at total choice, there's all these things going on and it's just not moving. It's like change in people in my life. There's change in things that I do, work. I'm literally looking at every single thing in my world, and there was this sort of request not long ago where I was like, you know what, everything has to change. And that wasn't very long ago. And everything is changing, literally everything's changing. All these different spaces are changing with relationships, with physical place of living, with different things that what I would call work, or things that I do. It's all really starting to change. And as I start playing with that more, I realize how much more fun things become when you start actually looking at it and playing from that space, from the space of like, oh, this is what I want to create in the world. What do I have to choose to actualize that? And what do I have to choose today to actualize that? And so it's been an interesting, this whole thing of choosing and also asking, what are you willing to receive? And what are you actually asking for? And I realize in my world that I'm not actually asking for the only word that's popping right now is the enormity of what I know is possible. And I'm not actually asking for that to show up, or I haven't been asking for that to show up. And how that, like, what that is actually like, what does that look like in your world? What does that look like what are you aware of? And like the extreme beyonds, almost like, it's almost like this fantasy of like, oh, that could never happen. What is that for you? And if you looked at that right now and you like truly looked at that beyonds and instead of looking at it as a total beyonds for you, what would your life actually be like if you chose that beyonds for you? How different would it be? And how different would you have to be? And when I say how different do you have to be, it's not necessarily like that you have to change who you are. It's more like acknowledging all that you already are, all that you already be, that you just don't acknowledge. And because you don't acknowledge it, the possibility of becoming all of you and actually choosing way beyond where you've actually chosen from can be this amazing creation in your life, can be the contribution that you truly know you are to your life, to the world. And how much would the world change if you actually chose that? And it's this constant like choosing you in every 10 seconds. It's this constant like acknowledging what you know is possible, and acknowledging that whatever you know is possible, that you can actualize, that you can create, that you can be a part of. And it most likely will look completely different than you think it will. And what else can you be or do that would create that right now? And it's almost like, what are you really not acknowledging that you are, or that you be, that could actually allow you to actualize it? It's really you that won't let you do it. And it's interesting when you look at if you looked at it from the place of like being truly infinite, being total space, total possibilities, then why would it not be possible? Everything is then possible. The only thing that probably in this 10 seconds is you've actually made it an impossibility. It's only you that think it's not possible, or maybe hundreds of thousands of other people and you're aware of their world, of what's impossible in their world, and you bought their story for it to be actually true. And what if it isn't? What if it's just a story? What if it's not even your story? What if it's somebody else's story? What if you're just simply super amazing, awesomely aware? What if you were actually way more brilliant than you have ever been willing to acknowledge? And it's really interesting because we had some people over the other night, which was super fun. And we ran bars and we watched Gaslight. And if you haven't seen the movie Gaslight, I highly recommend it. It was the version you'd like to see, or the version that is really the better one for explaining it is the 1944 version with, I believe it's Ingrid Bergman that's in it. And it's really cool because, anyways, we were talking about the whole conversation around gaslighting and so on, and how people do it and so on. I won't really go into it now too much, but what was super interesting is that what came out of the conversation, which is, so basically what came out of the conversation is that we gaslight ourselves. So we are the ones that are stopping ourselves the most, opposed to, other people stopping us, which is something that we always believe it is. And once you realize you're actually the one that's doing this to yourself, and basically one of the things with what gaslighting is, you create doubt in your world, and you put these little seeds of doubt for you, towards you. And that's the thing that you end up buying, and you end up stopping yourself because you doubt yourself on what's actually true and real for you, and what you are actually aware of or what you're not aware of, and all that. And what I keep on looking at when this comes up, and this comes up with other things too, is like, how brilliant are you? How brilliant do you have to be able to gaslight yourself? To be able to create any doubt for yourself, to yourself, about yourself. How brilliant is that? To stop yourself from not creating what you know is actually possible. Like, that is pretty amazing. That is extremely powerful. You are extremely potent if you're actually able to do that. And most people are. And it's like, and it keeps on coming back, because this is not the first time it showed up in my world, but when I see it, I'm just like, you have to be really brilliant and able to do that to yourself. Like, that is a really amazing creation and actualization. And that's just one example. Gaslighting is one example. And if you want to know more about it, just watch the movie. It's actually amazing. It really makes it quite clear and obvious in the movie to see what it actually is. But it's these little things of doubt that you create, and you do it to yourself all the time. And yes, other people contribute to the doubt as well in a lot of cases. Our society is actually based on that, based on creating doubt, creating that limitation. But you do it dynamically to yourself, and with such amazing brilliance, that it's like, wow, if you're just willing to acknowledge that, acknowledge the brilliance of being able to do that, that's how good you are at stopping yourself. You are so good at creating doubt. And what's so interesting is that you are so brilliant at the same time. One, you're brilliant, and two, you're brilliant for making this brilliant person believe that they're not brilliant, basically. And you do all of that. It literally requires no one else. And so that was one of these moments. It was like, oh my God, like, I totally gaslight myself. And it was one of these, kind of epiphany moments. And it's like, yeah, and most people actually do. And so when you become aware of that, when you have this awareness and these things that you are able to actualize in your world already, then you can start looking at this sort of thing of what's the freedom of choice? What can you actually choose? And if you're choosing total freedom, what would you actually choose? What if you had no place in your world where there was any doubt in what you were capable of, where there was no doubt of what you knew, what you could create, and also knowing that it's totally possible? And so it's just some place that you can play with. And it's like, what if you had no doubt? I know this is not a a new concept in any stretch, but it's like, what if you had total knowing of what was possible? You realized it wasn't actualized yet in this world, and you just kept on asking questions on what it would take to actualize that. That's all you did. In the total space of knowing that it's totally possible and that it will happen, you just don't know when and you don't know how, but you know it actually already is. And when people talk about asking and receiving, that's actually asking, because you're asking with no doubt of that it's possible. What you're asking for is the how it will show up and the when it will show up, basically. And you also don't have a point of view about how or when. That's really what asking is about. And some of you may be freaking out right now and going, yeah, but I don't know anything, and I don't, like, I'm a useless pile of crap, like, I'm totally pathetic, I can't create anything. Maybe, you're saying, well, you can create something, but I can't. What if that wasn't actually true? What if that was just the story of doubt that you have bought from yourself? What if that was exactly the gaslighting that you're actually doing to yourself? So, what if that wasn't there? What if you woke up every morning and you knew exactly what was possible, and your day was filled with asking questions on what it would take for it to show up, and what you would have to be or talk to or do to make that show up? And that you woke up every morning without any doubt whatsoever that your creation was possible, or your knowing was possible of what the future could be. It just hasn't shown up in this nanosecond yet. What if you actually chose not to doubt yourself, not to doubt what you truly know, regardless of what anyone says, including you? What would that change in your world? So, when you're watching this, what space are you now? If you actually chose to tap into the energy of actually truly knowing, and not in the space where you basically dismiss yourself and doubt yourself. Because there's actually no requirement to doubt yourself. It's just a choice. And if you had freedom to choose anything, would you actually choose doubt? Or would you choose knowing? And what would show up in your world, and how different or how expansive and how much more fun and excitement and joy would your life actually be? And how much more space and how much more ease? This is really why I choose to do these weekly shows, is to become aware of where we stop ourselves and to look at what else is possible and what other energies we are simply ignoring instead of acknowledging. That is within every single one of you, every single one of us. It's actually all already there. It's just acknowledging to yourself that it's possible, that you actually already know, that you don't need to choose doubt. And if you had total freedom to choose, what would you actually choose? If you had billions of dollars available to you, what would you actually choose? What else could you create in the world with that? And if you chose to actually be you and acknowledge you, acknowledge the brilliance of you, what would you choose? How different would you actually show up in the world? And how much more fun and ease could you choose? And would your life be if you chose? And what would you like to contribute to? And how many different ways can you contribute to whatever you'd like to contribute to? How many different ways can it show up? So those are my questions to you this week. Thank you all for showing up, for playing, and we'll do this again next week. The view will be different. It'll still be in this house. I'll probably choose a different area to do it in. And yay, how much fun can you have? And what else is possible? Thanks for joining, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.